So hopefully we'll have a few more people trickle in, but an intimate group is good for writing as well. I'd like to talk about, was anybody in Dr. Nyman's session just now? Okay. We have a similar perspective about narcolepsy, and my perspective is, I do have narcolepsy. My perspective is that it comes with many challenges, but it comes with other things too. And in the spirit of accelerating narcolepsy awareness, I feel like it's important that we look at both sides of narcolepsy. So let's start with just talking about what happens behind closed eyelids. We talk about what happens behind closed doors. If the eyes are the window to the soul, or the door to the soul, what happens behind those closed? We go to sleep. What does that mean? Dr. Nyman talked about how it's not just the absence of being awake, it's not some secondary to wakefulness, it's its own place, it's its own experience. There's dream life, and there's waking life. So, in talking about how there are things about narcolepsy that are very challenging, there are also things about narcolepsy that are positives, or that can be, or that are strengths. And in the same way, in our dreams, that we can go places we can't go in waking life, as people with narcolepsy, we can do things that we might not do otherwise if we weren't people with narcolepsy. So, in talking about waking life and the difference between waking life and dream life, there's something that I'm always curious about, and it's, as people with narcolepsy, how many people have narcolepsy? And how many people are loved ones or friends? We're all people with narcolepsy. Okay. So, in thinking of the difference between our dream lives and our waking lives, if you just jot down a few lines about a dream that had an impact on you, whether it was a nightmare, whether it was a good dream, whether it happened 20 years ago, or it happened last night. Just write a few lines about a dream that had an impact on you in some way. And in thinking about a dream that had an impact, think about how you felt in the dream. Think about what you were aware of in the dream, any sort of details. Could you fly? Could you shift matter? Any of the experiences you had in a dream that had an impact.
There's pens and paper right back there.
Oh, there's a pen and paper right back there. And even if the dream that you're describing is a nightmare, and you were feeling afraid, think about also other things about the nightmare that were not within the parameters of waking life. Describe something that was outside of the parameters of waking life. Good morning, those who just joined us. So we're starting by writing just a couple of lines that had about a dream that had an impact on us in some way. Whether it was a nightmare, whether it was a great dream, doesn't matter when you had the dream, but just write a few lines about a dream that had an impact and some of the details about it. Who you were, how you felt. Little guy. So customarily with this workshop, we would have a little more time, and because we have limited time, I'd like to just focus on one aspect of the workshop, and that has to do with underdogs. So, has anybody read any of Malcolm Gladwell's work? David and Goliath, Underdogs, Misfits. He talks about how underdogs are surprisingly successful. And are people with narcolepsy underdogs? Do we have to work harder to get things done? Do we have challenges that a lot of other people don't have? So we're underdogs. So the question is there a strength in being an underdog? And Gladwell believes that there is. I believe that there is. I believe that when there are some things we can't do, we learn to do other things. And we learn to do other things better. And there are things that we can do despite having narcolepsy, and there are things that we can do because we have narcolepsy. So, yes, it comes with many challenges, but if I can use the word gift, it comes with some gifts too. And one of the gifts of the underdog is about why underdogs win. More than they should. They don't always win, but they win more than they should statistically. And why is that? So one thought is because we do the unexpected. It's the element of surprise. Another thought is that we develop other strengths. And we turn a disadvantage into an advantage. So one of the disadvantages of narcolepsy is that we fall asleep when we don't want to. How can that be a strength? This is where we come to the separation between dream life, waking life. So in our waking life, we talk about dreams that we have for ourselves, goals that we have for ourselves. So now, just write a couple of lines, one line even, about a dream that you have for yourself, a goal that you have for yourself. And it can be anything. It can be something outrageous, it can be an adventure you would like to go on, it can be a career change, it can be something about yourself. You want to be more confident speaking in front of people. You want to be more patient with your children, whatever it might be. Write down a dream or a goal that you have for yourself. Now, in looking at that goal, write about a challenge that you might face in achieving it. And because most of us here are people with narcolepsy, write about a challenge that has to do with narcolepsy. challenges of being a person with narcolepsy is the absolute vulnerability we have at potentially falling asleep anywhere, anytime, and having no control over what happens to us. The flip side of that is that vulnerability makes us more compassionate. It makes us more able to walk in someone else's shoes. It makes us more able to understand other people who have a different way of being in the world. And I like to think of being a person with narcolepsy is a different way of being in the world. And it's not a way that fits into the mainstream box, but it's a valid way and it's a viable way. So how can we learn to appreciate our way of being for the strengths that come out of it? So if it makes us more compassionate, what can we do with that compassion? If it makes us more creative, what can we do with that creativity? And in looking at the goals that we have in our lives, I've just gone back to school to get a law degree. And it's already a challenge for a woman, moving on in years, but it has particular challenges. And so in order to get the courage to go back, I had to look at those challenges and then look at the flip side of them. So I might fall asleep during lectures. I might not be able to keep up with the homework. I might need to take naps in the middle of the day. And so in looking at the flip side, I looked at it as, okay, I will just need to be creative in how I'm going to manage those things. And I've been creative my whole life because I've had to be. And how can I put that creative perspective to work? And so I made the leap. I'm in school and I take naps. I have little tricks that I do, being creative, and helps to keep me awake. I always have water with me. And I'm finding that my creative perspective is advantageous in the study of the law, because the study of the law has some rigid frameworks, but I come at them from different perspectives because I'm used to coming at things from different perspectives. So that's what I'm talking about in seeing the flip side. It doesn't necessarily mean it's this is bad and this is good. It's just that there are subtleties to things. And so write a little bit about what the flip side of a challenge that you have in reaching your goal might be. I think one of the things in particular about narcolepsy is the hypnagogic hallucinations, being in two places at one time. How can being in two places at one time be a good thing? We're in this room, but the dream starts happening. How can that be a good thing?
I know what you're talking about. I can hear you. That's been before.
Yes. Anybody else have ideas about how that could be?
Well, I take a really long time to come out of anesthesia, and I had 4 surgeries in 1 year. And I warned everybody, but I could hear what they were saying about the surgery and about the other people that left the room and all these things. Like, okay, I guess I'll just be here and listen. I have no choice.
And then you feel like you have supernatural powers, so you can say, oh, well, when you said, wait a minute, you were out. Cool. That's right. Do other people have that experience with anesthesia? That it hits you harder? Is that a person with narcolepsy thing?
It is. Consciousness thing. Yep, me too.
I find a little bit of both, that it takes a lot more. I remember one time as a child going to the dentist, and they gave me the freezing, and then it said, okay, and I said, oh, I can still feel it. And start out, ah! And the dentist was shocked, that really.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I had to get stitches in my foot, and so they have to put the anesthesia in And I think it was like 3 or 4 in, and he was like, "Okay, can you feel this?" I was like, "I can feel that completely." And he was like, "You shouldn't be feeling anything." And I was like, "It feels like nothing happened."
But then it takes forever to go
Yeah,
away.
and
Right,
then
and
so
it
he just
stings.
kept like, and he was like, "No, you just feel the pressure." I'm like, "Ow!"
Right, I know the difference. And that might be a thing too. We're hypersensitive. We're hypersensitive to our environment. We're hypersensitive to other people. I think maybe we're better at reading people would be a flip side of that. And maybe we're better at reading people because we have to be. So if your lofty goal is to be an international spy, you'll probably be really good at it.
I think of it like that. I mean, I face a lot of challenges, also I'm facing some challenges, but having narcolepsy puts me in situations that the average person typically doesn't experience. So I feel like it kind of like a vaccine, like it prepares me. Should I experience that again, of something of the same or less caliber?
That is so beautifully put. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And along those lines, let's go back to the idea of the things that we can do, not just despite narcolepsy, but because of narcolepsy. And one of the things, and Dr. Nyman talked about this, is our easy interplay between waking life and dream life. And what can we do with that? I used to do a workshop here called Sleeping Prophets, because I feel like in the ancient societies, we would have been the shaman and the tribe. And in this society, our way of being doesn't have a place. So we have to make our place. And in accelerating narcolepsy awareness, let's talk about both sides of this story. So, in writing about the flip side of our challenges, let's tie these 3 things together. So we looked at a dream that we've had that had an impact. We're looking at a goal that we might have, and then we're looking at challenges. How do the 3 tie together? What is it about the dreamscape that can play into our waking lives? So instead of how do dreams serve our waking lives, how do we do the opposite? How do our waking lives serve our dreams? And then how can we circle that around? So in our waking lives, we have these challenges. And if one of the challenges is that we feel stuck, in our dreams, we can fly. So there's something in our waking lives about feeling stuck that helps us fly in our dream lives. Then let's bring that back around and change that feeling stuck in our waking lives. Let's fly in our waking lives. So in writing about this, let's go back to the dream you described. Let's look at the goal, the challenges you face, and see if you can write about a thread of connection of how you can bring this full circle, of helping to find a way to achieve goals, and of finding a way of describing what it's like to be a person with narcolepsy. Nyman also talked about people with narcolepsy and chronic inflammation, and we run hot. And I liked what he said about, one of our goals is to, but for us that means more than just being cool. And, maybe it's a fan. So I was thinking about goals that people might have. I have a friend who is in his 20s, and he wants to be a cop, and he has narcolepsy, and so he's worried about how that might play out in a career as a cop. And so we've talked a lot about things like I was saying about the international spy, that he's very good at reading people, he's very good at assessing situations. So maybe he won't be able to be a cop who's on duty on the streets and is going to fall down or fall asleep, but he might be a great detective. So that's an example of, because he has narcolepsy, he has developed some very particular skills that will serve him. So the final exercise we're going to do, and then I'm hoping that people will feel comfortable with sharing some of what you're writing and sharing some of your stories, is the idea of dreaming out loud. And dreaming out loud is speaking, bringing validity to dream, making dream viable in waking life as more than just a supplement to waking life. And in dreaming out loud and telling our stories, let's be hypersensitive to that. So the final exercise is just to write in one paragraph the story of you. It can be any aspect. It can be an experience. It can be one aspect of narcolepsy. It can be something that happened to you as a child. Write about it from the third person. And write about it as if that character is the main character in a story, and the character is an underdog. So one paragraph coming from the perspective as if you're watching you, and you're describing a little bit about your experience of being a person with narcolepsy. Is that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things I like about this exercise is that it helps us to come from more of a dream perspective, where sometimes in the dream we're observers, sometimes we're watching, sometimes we're participating, sometimes we're both. And in writing about ourselves from a perspective other than I, it helps us to see ourselves that way. It helps us to look at ourselves in a way that we might not customarily look at ourselves. just another minute or so. And then I talk about this tomorrow in the other workshop that I'm going to be doing, the Journalism 101 workshop. But there is a lot of power in sharing our stories. And one of the things about sharing our stories is that it gives us an opportunity to be heard. It gives us an opportunity to offer the gift of listening to someone else. And both of those are very powerful things. So if you're ready, then I would like to tell you how you would like to do this. We can either split into some smaller groups, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people, or we can continue with the group at large and share some of the stories that we've written. What feels more comfortable?
It might be easier not to get sidetracked in a larger group, because you're aware the whole time.
Okay.
Maybe we get
Okay.
some people dominated. This was my thoughts.
Yeah, that feel good? Okay, so maybe just on your own kind of split into.
Do it, I agree with it.
Oh, do it.
A group can be hijacked, sort of, right?
Okay, so we're talking the big group.
Is that what you guys think?
Yeah. Okay, all right. So who would like to share their story? Who would like to start? Is anybody? Okay.
I'll start with just connecting with dreams and challenging. Interesting. My dream, I just remember so vividly, like I was flying, and I was cool, and I was like flying over these really green valleys, and there were higher balloons, and I was totally fine with like not knowing where I was going, but just like in awe of how beautiful it looked. And I was like also really confident in it as I was like taking all this in. And the thing I said I wanted to do was confidently own and share like my experience. And I said that a challenge would be that it would affect my career prospects by sharing that information or certain relationships. But the flip side was like, maybe I'm not meant for that. And I was thinking to myself, if I could take the confidence and acceptance of like, I have in my unconscious and let it lead me like boldly through the unknown in my consciousness, then it would help me like this girl who thought for so long she knew exactly what she was doing and where she was going, and that she maybe wasn't worthy of doing certain things. Help her realize like how strong and worthy and brave that she actually is, and that it was just going to take some sacrifice and trust.
That's amazing. Wow. Thank you. That makes me think of what's the expression about? Well, it's kind of an expression actually. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But it makes me think about how sometimes we just feel like we have to go in this particular direction, but when we just take a step back, maybe we don't have to go in that direction at all. Maybe we can turn left, and just feeling the freedom or the confidence to do that. So, thank you. Who else? Somebody else share your story?
For me, I remember when I was so I got diagnosed in 10th grade. And then when I was in 11th grade, I had a strong possibility of not finishing high school, like very strong. And I was like really trying to figure out what in the world to do. Because I was like, this is nonsense. This is so stressful. Like, do I really need to do this? There's different things I can do. And so in 11th grade, I remember I had this dream where I graduated from high school. And it was like, woo, that dream was great. Oh man, it came at a perfect time. Oh man, it was a really good dream. And I remember I woke up and was like, I graduated high school. And like genuinely thought I had done it. So it was like, I woke up during a weekday. And my mom was like, what are you doing? You got ready to school? I was like, Mom, I graduated high school. I'm good. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, like, I'm chilling until college comes around. I'll be fine. And she eventually talked me out of it and made me realize I didn't actually graduate high school.
Like trying it on felt pretty good.
Yes. So that was the key. Really, that dream was a big turning point for me, helping me realize I could actually graduate high school, like no matter how ridiculous it got. And what was funny is when I eventually did graduate high school, it didn't even feel as good as the dream. It felt great, but that dream was like,
That was the crescendo.
yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, I guess the challenge is going forward. So I'm trying to be a teacher, and I've always known, I know since 8th grade that teaching is the thing I want to do. And yeah, being a sleepy teacher, there's a lot. There's a lot connected to that, a lot of challenges. But I mean, I'm going to do it. I don't know when. I don't know how long it's going to take. It'll take a little while. So trying to turn those challenges into a strength. I think the biggest thing for me is coming up with lots of creative solutions through my dreams. It has to be all the time where, there'll be something I can't figure out. Even when I was in school, I'm still in school now, but there'll be, say, something I can't figure out or a concept I don't really get, and then I have a dream, and then a little while later, I'm like, I'll go back to class, and I'm like, oh, there it is. And it's figured out, like, through that dream, through whatever happened. And I may not even remember the dream, but then I get to, like, assessment or whatever, and I'm like, yeah. So I definitely think there's strength in that.
And I think because we're such vivid dreamers, we do get those aha moments, maybe more than other people do. And maybe that plays into how we can be more creative in our lives. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the dream I remember the most, I dated the same guy all through high school. And like 15 years later, he had married years ago, and his wife did not want any exes around, and so I had no contact with him. And so one night I dreamed that he jumped off a cliff, and it was so strong that I woke up at 4 in the morning. I was like, what's going on? And so I couldn't decide I had to contact him. I didn't want to get him in trouble, so I contacted him on email at work, and it was just one line like, Chuck, I had a dream that you jumped off a cliff last night. Please just tell me you're still on the planet. And he wrote back, he said, you're a freak woman. I turned in my notice at the police department this morning. I'm getting a desk job in banking. And I said, it's good as it's a metaphorical cliff, I'm all over it. But it made me realize that the intuitions I have, I can trust. And so, that's happened lots of times since that kind of thing. But so this is kind of personal, and it's kind of, I wrote it for me, but I don't mind sharing it because it shows kind of how that works. So I learned that I do have power and I can depend on my intuition. So she was 42 years old. She thought she was doing what God intended to do at the top of her career, reaching children and families, teaching typical kids to compassionately support each other, as well as kids with disabilities. But then came a terrible cognitive decline that finally led to the narcolepsy diagnosis. She had to step away from the job, away from the staff she had so lovingly built, totally drop out of life, completely undependable to her family and friends. Who would guess that, as wrenching as that whole episode was, it would lead to an even richer life, raising more than $4 million, influencing hundreds more children, and helping the PWN community to move toward better treatments.
Amazing.
I just knew something good had to come out of it. So.
And you had the belief in yourself to do it. I think that really speaks to the thing about underdogs. That why do underdogs win against odds? Why do they win more than they should? And I think that's a big part of it. It's the coming at things from a different angle and believing You know, when your back is against the wall, that's actually the place that's going to propel you to something better, something
Also,
different.
you just get used to knowing you're not going to take that same path that everybody has worn.
Yes.
You're just going, that's not going to be me, so I'm open to
Yeah.
not feeling like a failure when I take a year out of grad school. Who's who cares now?
Yes. Yes.
So the dream that I picked was, I guess, like my most memorable. So we had like one of our, I guess my classmates died in a car accident. But this was also around the time when there were so many school shootings and stuff. And so I had a dream that someone was shooting at my school, and like I watched my brother like get shot. And that was like the worst dream for me ever. And it felt so real. It felt like he was like right there. Like I watched it, and eventually I woke up and like I was crying, and it felt so real. Like to the point where I had to like, you know, touch my brother, and like I woke him up like out of his sleep, and I just hugged him, and I just kept crying and crying. And you know, that was before then. You know, I was so worried about, you know, my school, and you know, just I guess it's like for the country, and you know, just everything that was going on. And so I guess I made me realize that I'm a really vivid dreamer, and that I worry a lot, but it's all, you know, from care. And so I've learned to like not stress, but just care.
Ooh,
And so so my goal is to finish college, and I guess the challenge is like waking up for my classes and, you know, staying focused. But like I had a dream that also I graduated college, and I guess it felt real as well. It didn't feel like what I knew when I woke up, but like, you know, the feeling of accomplishment felt really great, and so it motivates me to keep going because I know that I'll feel, you know, accomplished at the end. And so mine is Kelsey was a warrior, and she could often be found stressing over something out of her control to the point where she would get sick. But she's learned that she's a carer and someone who takes care of her.
That's cool.
And inspiring. And I think that's another thing too about why it's important in accelerating narcolepsy awareness, is that in sharing our stories, we inspire each other, and we inspire other people too. We can inspire other people with other ways of being in the world, and we can inspire people who are in the, what do we call it, normal box, but who also have their own challenges. And I think that's part of the power of stories, and being really honest about what our stories are. These things are hard, but then there's this. And I think we have time to share one more story. Is anybody else willing to?
I used to be really afraid of zombies, so I play lots of video games, but whenever there was like a zombie mode or anything, I would not play that game because I was really afraid of, you know, zombie apocalypse in real life. And then, you know, in my dreams, I just, you know, imagined that I became, you know, Lord of the Zombies and undead. So you know what, you know, zombies are my friends now. So yeah, I don't feel afraid, you know, being near one. Yep. I'm dead in the game, so, but there's hobbies that, I mean, that's part of, yeah.
It's almost immunity.
Yeah, immunity to zombie.
Yeah. I had vampires always in my dreams, and at some point in my dream life, you know, we became friends. And so I had the same sort of experience.
I used to be afraid of being bitten by a zombie. And then I had a vampire, and then I had a vampire girlfriend in my dreams.
Right? That's all it all. Yes. But you know, I think there's something to this too about generally people with narcolepsy, how we do have these, in our dream lives, we have these epic, mythological kind of level dreamscapes and dynamics, and you know, we're kind of can be superheroes in our dreams. And you know, we can be superheroes in our own lives too, in the same way. And it also makes me think about in the creative arts, like, maybe you could write a great screenplay. Maybe, there are also ways that these epic stories that we participate in can be valuable in very concrete ways too.
I just have a question. Does anybody have like really bad deja vu? Like I get deja vu
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
And I think it comes from like, oh, I think I dreamt that, or maybe like I feel like this happened exactly like this, to the point where I'm like, you're about to say this.
Yes. And I think there could be even some, when we have our little micro sleeps where we just fall asleep for a minute, I think there is a deja vu aspect in that too, where something that is about to play out plays out, and then,
Join in the process and feel like.
yes.
It's like,
Do you guys ever have like dreams where you're trying to wake up,
Oh, yeah.
but then you wake up finally just to find that you're dreaming again and you're trying to wake up again? I have those.
One dream
Like,
that was
That's like when I take my naps at work. Like I take a nap in my car like every day at work, and sometimes they're very relaxing, and sometimes I feel like I'm just constantly struggling to get back to work, and like the whole dream is just like waking up from the dream. Yeah.
What was that movie with the dream within a dream within a dream?
Yeah.
Yes, and because I
Not as exciting as that. It's very stressful.
Yes.
I think especially when I was going to school, like with grade school, it was always like, okay, get up. I'm like, okay, cool. You have this full dream that you got up, you got
Yes.
ready, you're
Yes.
walking
All
out
the
the
time.
door,
Nobody's gonna read that.
and you're sitting that whole time.
My dad would take away like privileges, like I'd be losing stuff left and right, and I'm still asleep. And like, yeah, he's like, no friends this weekend. You're doing extra chores this weekend. And I'm like, Dad, I swear I was up. Like, I was already dressed. How did
I
get
was
here?
out the door.
Yeah.
Or even, I'll be mad at my sister, and I can't remember why. But it's like, oh, never mind. That was a dream. Forget that. Or a movie. I'll say, oh, did you see that movie where? Oh, never mind.
That was a dream.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming to this, and just keep writing and keep sharing. I think it's really, really important that we do this for ourselves and for our community, and whatever your community is. We have to look at things from both sides and share our stories and share them from both sides. And we're awesome. We're shaman. Let's believe in ourselves, and let's keep. There's an expression, soldiering on, and my girlfriends and I call it goddessing on. But let's soldier on. Let's goddess on. Let's move through those challenges